What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 19 of the Rondo. Ryan is my name, and as always, joined by my guy Josh Parrish. And Josh, I've been isolating, battling COVID. So today's episode is a little bit less prepared as it would normally be. Not gonna lie, we just started talking about maybe like 15 minutes ago.
This episode is pure vibes, and I think the people will enjoy it.
Yeah.
This is what they come here for.
Yeah.
Do you come here for serious analysis? Probably
not, because you're not going to listen to two random guys in their bedrooms talking about but no, yeah, it's been isolating. We would have loved to do this in person, but I'm out on Friday. I'm not symptomatic, Josh, so we'll be able to hang out again soon. But until then, this will be how it is. And it's probably for the best, because every time we're in the same room, it is hot as shit. And at the time of recording, it's like 30 over degrees.
Yeah, it's not nice out there. People who like summer should not be trusted.
Yeah.
I don't mean your family dog. I mean the season.
Very good. Very niche joke.
Yeah, extremely.
No, I've always been a winter guy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't leave Singapore to come to some place that is just as hot, and the only selling point is not as humid, because this is not as enjoyable.
Yeah, I think we all need to go to Tasmania.
Look, all I'm saying is Tassie was pretty good, nice and cool.
They're ahead of the game.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get into it. We're gonna open the show with someone that I haven't thought about in years, to be honest. But he has always been a source of a lot of antics, if you will. Mario Balotelli is back in the headlines. Roberto Mancini recalling him to the Italian squad for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. And just for context as well, his form, it has to be said, does justify maybe the call-up if you look at the pure numbers. He plays in Turkey right now and has scored 8 goals, 19 league appearances, with one more goal in the Turkish Cup. But Josh, is this more a sign of desperation than a reward for good form on Italy's behalf?
Yeah, I think it's a sad indictment of where Italy's striker stocks have got to and the injuries that they've suffered. I mean, Federico Chiesa's big injury has really put a dampener on the enthusiasm and the excitement for these playoff games, because he's the guy who is kind of the game breaker. He's the guy who comes up in that one big moment and scores a goal. And, without his kind of intensity and his big game aptitude, Italy suddenly look a little bit more hollow in terms of their depth up front. I mean, Ciro Immobile scores goals for fun in Serie A, but for the Italian national team, he's never really delivered on a consistent basis. He's had chances, but maybe on the bigger stage, Immobile hasn't quite lived up to his league form. And Balotelli, who I've always thought in Roberto Mancini's 4-3-3 as a target player, a guy you can play into his feet or get crosses into, is probably a better fit in the 4-3-3, but he's injured. So Italy have a real problem now, and the fact that Mancini has turned to Balotelli again after all of their bust-ups over the years, after their very tumultuous relationship, suggests to me that he's pretty desperate for an X-factor, a game-changing player off the bench. And I'm not sure bringing Mario Balotelli back from a mid-table Turkish Super League team after all these years is the answer. I think maybe they should have taken a bit more of a chance on somebody younger. And I can see in my mind's eye, in these playoff games coming up against North Macedonia, if they get through, they'll probably have to play Portugal to get to the World Cup. So it's a hard road ahead. I can just see some sort of tragic red card in the near future that might rule Italy out of a second consecutive World Cup.
And I mean, they're famous stories, right, about Mario Balotelli. I mean, the big one is obviously when he did try to do that spinning move to score that goal in that friendly for Manchester City when Mancini was in charge, and he yanked him off. But there's also that famous Jose Mourinho story during his time in Inter. At halftime, Mourinho tells him, "Look, we can't get you another card. You can't get sent off." And what does he proceed to do in the opening moments of that second half? Get a red card. But I think your point about Italy's lack of firepower since they won the Euros, apart from a 5-0 win over Lithuania, they've only scored 5 goals. in 6 matches. You named a couple of big names there that are injured. Are there any names that spring to mind that maybe could have been picked ahead of Mario Balotelli?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, they've called up a lot of players, Italy. I still think, even though he's not playing regularly for Juventus, Moise Kean is still a better option at this point. I just think he has less risk for, a terrible mistake or a red card or, destabilizing the training ground and the dressing room or whatever. I just think there's less risk involved with a player like him in these big games. Italy don't have that many young strikers playing regularly in Serie A. Sebastiano Esposito was supposed to be the next big thing. He hasn't broken through yet. Multiple loan moves. He's out at FC Basel, I believe. He's only just started getting in the team, so maybe it's too soon for him. Pietro Pellegrini is another player who's had big raps on him, but he hasn't played for Milan. 40-year-old Zlatan Ibrahimovic is still starting ahead of him and he's well down the pecking order behind the likes of Rebic and Rafa Leao. So I believe he's going to Torino this window, and that might be a chance for him to get some first-team football and get in the picture for the Italian squad. But yeah, the options are thin on the ground, and there's a lot of older players and foreigners. If you look at the Serie A top scorers list, the likes of Ed and Dzeko are still dominating the standings, and there aren't too many local players. And seeing Lorenzo Insigne decide to go to FC Toronto instead of staying at a high level, I wonder whether come the World Cup, because his move comes at the end of this season, whether Mancini will have to be forced to stick with him. Even though he would probably prefer to drop a guy who's decided to go to MLS to pick up a paycheck instead of testing himself.
And look, I'm gonna reel off the names of that squad selection of the forwards in the Italian team. All right, so you've got Balotelli, Domenico Berardi, Federico Benedeschi, Immobile, Insigne, João Pedro from Cagliari, Raspadori, Scamacca, and a couple of other names, Zaniolo. Any name stands out to you as someone they can look towards, or is it not good reading for Italian fans?
The one guy is Scamacca. I'm big on him. I mean, they've called up Berardi even though he's got an injury cloud, and I don't think he's an out-and-out striker anyway. Yep. He's more of a winger who cuts inside. A lot of those guys you mentioned are actually wingers. They're in the forward section, but they're not out-and-out number 9s. Raspadori, for example, you could put him up front, but he'd be a fish out of water. He's much better used in a more playmaking role. But Scamacca has really impressed me. He's the big hope. But you need more than one striker in this extended squad. So I can see why they've gone back to Balotelli. But I also see this as potentially ego from Roberto Mancini. He's going back to his one regret in his career, that he couldn't, hone this talent. This unbelievable talent. He couldn't fix him, and he's going back to try and maybe resurrect Mario Balotelli's career and therefore right some of the wrongs of his own managerial past. And I just want to read this quote from him. This is on the 6th of April 2012. I told him, this is Mancini speaking about Balotelli, I told him, if you played with me 10 years ago, I would give you every day maybe one punch in your head. There are different ways to help a guy like Mario. I don't speak with him every day. Otherwise, I would need a psychologist. If Mario is not one of the best players in the world, it will be his fault because he has everything. Mario can be one of the top players in Europe. I don't want him to lose his talent. Very soon after that, about a month later, there was that famous game against QPR where, down 2-1, with the title on the line, Mancini was at the edge of his technical area, screaming at every single Man City player individually, and you can see it. It doesn't take a lip reader to see he's saying F you, F you, F you. And he throws Balotelli and Dzeko on, and Balotelli ends up setting up Aguero for the title-winning goal. But then, a year later, there's a training ground fight between the two of them, between manager and player, after Balotelli went in studs up on one of his teammates at a training session, and Mancini just completely lost his rag and eventually got rid of him. So it all ended on a sour note despite that title triumph, and Roberto Mancini, I think it's like one of your old exes that you know is bad for you, but you're going back to them again. It's like, I can fix him.
And look, if Italy do manage to qualify for the World Cup, you know who's bringing the fireworks. Head to Mario Balotelli's hotel room. It's going to go off there.
In the bathroom.
In the bath. Another prodigious talent that is also in headlines, Anthony Martial, who I'll never forget when he made his United debut against Liverpool. Pop, bang, goal.
Oh, yes!
Amazing.
Martin Tyler losing it.
Amazing. But since then, the return has arguably not been what people have expected. And recently left out of the squad. What game was that? Was it the Aston Villa game he was left out of the squad? And Ralph Rangnick in the post-match interview said he asked not to be selected. Martial went to Instagram, said, I didn't do that. And this morning we find out that Sevilla have, I don't know if they have or not, but are close to an agreement to cover his wages, take him to Spain on loan. My question to you is this a win on United's part to finally offload, a big pay packet and also a talent that seems to have fallen to the wayside? Or is this a win for Sevilla and a fresh start for Anthony Martial to fulfill that potential? All those years ago when he moved and became one of the most expensive teenagers in the world.
Yeah, I think this is almost an upgrade for Martial in terms of a club that's actually competing for a title. They're only 4 points off Madrid.
Yep.
And they're great to watch, Sevilla. They're a hard-working group with a few real flair players. I love Papu Gomez. That's his nickname, Papu, but Alejandro Gomez. You're
close with him. That's why you get to call him.
No, he goes basically by his nickname all the time. He's got it on the back of his shirt. Even, he's an Argentinian playmaker. I don't know if you've watched much Atalanta over the last few years, Ryan, but he was the highlight of that particular team, and he scored another banger on the weekend against Celta Vigo to help them come from 2-0 down to steal a point. They are a legitimate chance here for the La Liga title. I mean, Atletico have obviously interrupted the duopoly in recent seasons, and Sevilla look like the best chance of doing that this campaign. Yep. And Madrid have this aging group who are not always that consistent. They're not always that defensively solid, and they themselves had to come from 2-0 down against Elche on the weekend. So both teams are dropping points. It's an exciting title race, and Martial as an extra option maybe could boost Sevilla's chances if he's in the right headspace, because Martial's an incredibly inconsistent player. His form has fluctuated over the years. But the thing I'm most excited about is this is almost Sevilla going back to the future in terms of one of their great strikers of yesteryear. I don't know if you remember Freddie Canute.
Yeah, I do remember Freddie Canute. What a baller.
Martial has always reminded me of him. He always gets compared to Thierry Henry, but Henry was rapid and Martial is a bit more of a languid player. Yeah. And Canute was this, bigger than Martial, I guess stronger than him, but
same amount of hair. So it makes sense.
Played more like a sort of Berbatov type, linking player. They're really deft touches and technique, and Martial fits that mould, and Sevilla had great success getting him from Tottenham back in the day, signing a player from the Premier League who was a little bit out of favour, and he went on to great things in Spain and won multiple UEFA Cups with them in that team that had Dani Alves at right back, of course. But I like Martial because I see this as another Premier League star going over to Spain after it hasn't quite worked out for him. And I think the pace of the league there being a little bit slower, a little bit more technical, a little bit less kick and rush stuff from the opposition teams they'll be playing, might suit him a little better. So I'm excited to see if he can break into this Sevilla side, because they do have other striking options. Rafa Mir's been scoring goals. El Nesri is at AFCON at the moment, but is a very good player, very handy. So they've got a few options up front, but Martial could make the difference in what will be a title race of fine margins.
And with 56 goals in just over 170 odd appearances at Manchester United, do you think that he's been a success? And if not, what do you think went wrong? Was it more of a mental block? How some players like Mario Balotelli before just can't seem to get things right, mentally, or was it the constant changing of systems that didn't help him either?
Yeah, I don't think he ever had a consistent position. No one ever really could work out if he was best on the left, cutting inside, or best as a number 9. And then playing on the left was kind of blocked from him because Marcus Rashford ended up making that position his own for a little while there.
Yeah.
So he couldn't break into the team on that side, and he was competing with the likes of Cavani and so forth for the striking role. I mean, he's been at United for a long time, so there was ample opportunity for him. I think you can only blame himself that he hasn't made more of his talent. So there is a mental block there. I think a better coach, maybe a different style of management, a different style of motivation might have got more out of him, but United has been a chaotic, changing environment for many years, and players underperforming is nothing new. So I don't put all of the blame on Anthony Martial for that. But certainly, given the talent he showed early in his career and in bursts under Solskjaer during the COVID comeback, the first one, I should say, the United went on that run with Martial playing up top and Bruno Fernandes in behind him. So, he's obviously got the ability. It's just up to him to make the most of it, and up to Lopetegui at Sevilla now to get the best out of him. So, I don't know. It's a mixture, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. It's sort of 50-50.
Yeah, you always felt that, there was another level that he could have achieved. But I'm going to miss him cutting in from the right and just making it look effortless when he hits R1 circle and he just goes top corner, top pins. It's just incredible stuff. And we'll end this episode with something that caught my eye in the news. And I want to ask your opinion on this, because I'm very interested, because this is not the first time it's happened in the world of sport. Jamie Carragher on Sky Sports, after criticising Messi, claimed, because I guess you didn't actually see the DMs, right? But claimed that Lionel Messi himself, some people's GOAT, reached out in the DMs and called Jamie Carragher a donkey for his opinion that PSG and the Messi deal was not, the best option or the best thing for the football club, and his return in Liga in terms of goals and stuff. What do you think about these players kind of retaliating or clapping back at their critics, right? Because a more famous example is Kevin Durant and his burner accounts in the NBA, as a different reference, clapping back at his own critics and stuff. Do you think that players should be allowed to do that? That they should be able to defend kind of their own brand, I guess, if you will. Or does it speak to something a little more prima donna, diva-ish, that, you can't take criticism from people who are paid to critique?
I think it's funny that the more we learn about Messi behind closed doors, the more we realise that he's actually quite like a petty guy.
Yeah.
He's actually quite petulant, and he doesn't like it when things don't go his way. He sort of ruled Barcelona by passive aggression for many years there, and I don't think it led to being the healthiest environment. I don't think he is much of a leader, really, Messi. The greatest footballer of all time, perhaps, but not a leader. And yeah, when you see this kind of stuff come out, it amuses me more than anything. I think absolutely players should show as much personality as they like on social media, whether it's in the DMs or just posting through it, because it gives us more to joke about on the Rondo. So that's my answer.
Well, I think I find it amazing, right? Because and maybe it might be good for you to give some context to when you said when he ruled Barcelona with a little bit of passive aggression of what that means, right? Because I didn't know that until you told me some of those insights from that book that you'd read. Because for me, when I hear these stories, I'm like, you're Lionel Messi. Like, you got all the money in the bank. You've done everything. Like, why does it matter what, Jamie Carragher says about you, And for me, I just find that baffling. But maybe the context that you'll provide in terms of how he was at Barcelona might give some insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, this is Simon Cooper's book, by the way, and there are many anecdotes in that book of people sort of being a little bit afraid of him, or he wouldn't even say anything. He would just generally seem like he was in a bad mood, and then they would do something else, that would, like they would change the formation or something, or the training session or something, just because it seemed like Messi wasn't happy that day. He wasn't a direct This is why I'm a little bit surprised, actually, because this is like highly confrontational. But I guess it's easier when you're behind a phone as opposed to like, telling something to somebody's face. Yeah, mostly I think it's funny. But you know, I think it also reveals that players are they're human. You know, it doesn't feel good when you're watching Monday Night Football. You're settling down. They're talking about Ronaldo or, you know, Liverpool or something. And, you know, suddenly you get a drive-by from Jamie Carragher saying you should never have gone to PSG and you're a bad signing. Like, you know, obviously that hurts. You know, you can't go anywhere without getting slandered in some way. And if you want proof of that, just whenever Messi is on a pitch at anywhere in the world, just go on Twitter and type in the word Pessy and click the latest tab, and you'll see torrents of abuse, no matter what he's done.
Yeah.
Whether he's having the game of his life or an absolute stinker, he's still going to get it all the time. So when you get it from someone that maybe you actually respect the opinion of, because you're sitting down to watch Monday Night Football, doesn't feel so good. So, you know, I can totally understand it. I mean, it's probably a bit childish to do that. And now we're also assuming that it was him in the DMs and not somebody managing his account, losing their rag or something.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it does reveal that, you know, players have feelings too, and it never feels good when you read something about yourself that, you know, is very unflattering. And
so does this make Jamie Carragher then the GOAT of presenting for having goated out the GOAT himself?
I think he's going to get donkey emojis in his replies for quite some time from the Messi defenders. He's a entertaining presenter. I think he always adds something to the discussion, even if I disagree with him. But I also feel that over the last few years, the kind of combative dynamic between him and Neville has become very self-aware. Yeah. And some of the stuff, the back and forths on Twitter, you know, Neville posting the selfies holding a glass of wine every time, you know, Liverpool is losing or whatever. It's just to become a little bit too staged for me. Yeah. So I've kind of gone off it recently, if I'm honest. Exactly.
That was good time. Someone just emptying the bins outside. But, you know, it's good timing because that's the end of the show. Today was a bit of a light-hearted show, not that much in-depth analysis, but more a bit of a vibes in the banter. What are you looking forward to in the week upcoming in the world of football?
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to the international break. The Socceroos game on Thursday night against Vietnam. I say I'm looking forward to it. When I actually watch them, I'll probably be throwing things at the TV screen. But, you know, it's a game in Melbourne finally, and it should be a big crowd there. So that's nice. Are you going? I'm not actually. I'm playing it safe with the old Oliver Cromwell out and about. I could have gone, but I decided to just, you know, leave it. It seemed like a bad time to go to a stadium with 27,000 people in it. So I'm going to be watching on TV, but that should be good. The Matildas are playing in the Asian Cup, and they ended up beating Indonesia 18-0 the other day, which led to the question, should they have picked their full-strength team against a team 80 places below them in the world rankings, who, you know, didn't have any players above, like, 170 centimetres, because the Matildas just smashed in corner after corner and, you know, dominated. But when they get it to the business end of the tournament, there's going to be a lot more competitive games. So that's going to be really interesting and instructive, I think. And then, you know, more international football, AFCON coming to a conclusion. We've seen all sorts of antics and fun things happen in that tournament, including an outfield player going in goal for Comoros this morning as we record this. And there's a really amusing still that's doing the rounds. Of him rushing out to try and save a one-on-one and actually forgetting he's an outfield player and holding his hands behind his back like he's still playing fullback. So, you know, old habits die hard, I suppose. But AFCON always delivering. And Vale Comoros, they were one of the best underdogs I've ever watched. They had everything in those games, and they had a fantastic tournament. Yeah, no, I've been enjoying the AFCON too. You know, I'm a big Nigeria fan. You know, you've seen me wearing the kits, but obviously they lost to Tunisia, who, you know, had half the squad out with COVID and stuff. So that whole competition is just upset and shock after upset and shock. I'm excited to see how far the Gambia can go.
after they qualified for the quarterfinals this morning. It's just an exciting football tournament.
Yeah, it's always full of surprises. You can never predict that thing. I mean, Algeria set a world record for wins in a row, I think it was, or unbeaten games in a row. And then they managed to get knocked out in the group stage of a tournament that's almost impossible to be knocked out in the group stage of, because many of the third place teams go through. And then Nigeria, no one thought they were much of a shout to win the thing because of the coaching change and the chaos surrounding Nigerian football, as it always is, seems to happen with that team. And no Emmanuel Dennis, of course, as we talked about on this show. Then they won all 3 of their group stage games, 9 points. Confidence was high. And then, as you say, knockout round somehow conspire to be knocked out by one of the third place finishing teams playing a half-strength squad. So it's just bonkers.
Football.
It's just so good.
Crazy. Well, not next week because international break, but yeah, the Premier League picks will be back. Josh is obviously leading like 1 billion to 4 or something. So we're just waiting for the fixtures to kind of even out with all these catch-up games and stuff. They'll be back where I'm hoping to stage a massive comeback to win the PFC Vintage Kit. But until next time, Josh, pleasure as always. Hopefully we'll be back in person. Much like Martial's renaissance in the COVID comeback, I'm hoping to make my own COVID comeback. And we'll be in person next week.
I think we have to call that the Ryan Tata.